Conform. Conform. Subvert.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Teal. I was just wondering if I can count on your vote tomorrow.
Oh, are you standing in the by-election?
It's not just a by-election, Mrs. Teal. It's for gays and straights too. Anyone can vote, regardless of sexuality. Honestly, it's like banging your head against a brick wall.
So who are you standing for?
The Gay Rights for Gays party.
Oh, that's nice.
Anyway, seeing as I am the only gay in the village, I shouldn't think anyone will be remotely interested. Good day.
In comedy, it is referred to as the rule of three. Conform, conform, subvert. In Little Britain, Daffyd believes himself to be the only gay in the village. He pushes that point, and then it is revealed that homosexuals are everywhere, and he cannot accept it.
Llandudno Breffy is not the place for an out gay man. Yeah, I'm gay, get over it!
The most common criticism for Little Britain at the time it was broadcast was the fact that every sketch kind of felt the same, as the show was made of reoccurring characters and they all seemed to have their own catchphrases. It worked best in those later seasons when they broke away from the form.
I'm going to go now back to my home in Llandudno Breffy, which is a lovely village. In fact, you live in a nice village, don't you?
I do, yeah.
In Berkshire.
Yes, that's right.
I've heard it's very nice, very picturesque.
It is,
in fact, there's a lot of nice cottages. I might come down there and explore them.
Oh, I don't think that's a good idea.
Why not?
Because I'm the only gay in that village.
Monty Python, along with Spike Milligan, were renowned for subverting expectations and rewriting the rules of comedy.
I wish to register a complaint. Sorry, we're closed for lunch. Never mind that, my lad. I wish to complain about this parrot, what I purchased not half an hour ago from this very boutique.
But Michael Palin and John Cleese would do the parrot sketch so regularly at Amnesty International's Secret Policeman's Ball that on the umpteenth occasion they were called upon to perform it, they did this.
I wish to register a complaint. Hello, miss. What do you mean, miss? I'm sorry, I have a cold. I wish to make a complaint about this parrot, what I purchased not half an hour ago from this very boutique.
Oh, yes, the Norwegian blue.
The Norwegian blue.
What's wrong with it?
I'll tell you what's wrong with it, my lad. It's dead. That's what's wrong with it.
So it is. Right. There's your money back, a couple of holiday vouchers. Thank you.
When it comes to movies, the first act is your setup. In the first 25-30 minutes, you have to set up shop to what is going to happen later on in the story. So if we're using Toy Story for example, it is set up that in this world toys come to life when the owners aren't looking. But by the end of the first act, Andy and his toys are separated and they have to go on an adventure to get back to him. If we only found out halfway through the movie that these toys could talk, it would throw you out of the movie. That's the same for a musical. Any musical, it doesn't matter which. But in the first 30 minutes, you have to have at least one musical number, but more likely 2 or 3, just to set up how this story is being told. It would be very strange for the characters to start singing their emotions about 1 hour into the movie, unless there was a particularly strong narrative reason for it. This is the problem I had with the Denzel Washington movie Deja Vu. The time travel element is introduced so late into what I thought was a cop thriller that I couldn't accept the tonal shift.
Almost every film that gets made now is not a single genre. That was decades ago. Now, almost every film that gets made, not just in Hollywood, but in worldwide cinema, is a combination of 2, 3, and sometimes 4 genres. Now, a lot of writers know this. What they don't know, they usually don't know, is that combining genres is very difficult because each genre has its own hero, its own opponent, its own desire line, theme, and so on. So when you start combining these, typically you end up with chaos. You end up with so many story elements that are unconnected that the script doesn't work.
The opening act of a film is a promise to the audience, and you can either keep that promise or break it. The Woody Allen film Purple Rose of Cairo is a romantic comedy set in Depression-era New York. In order to escape her humdrum life, Cecilia spends all day in the cinema, until the star steps off the screen. Cecilia falls in love with this character and shows him New York. The problem is the movie cannot go on until he returns to the screen. So the actor who plays the character shows up. He also falls in love with Cecilia, and she has to choose between the fantasy or reality. And that's when the rug is pulled out from underneath you. I had already finished this movie in my head 5 minutes before the end, and boom, last moment, left turn.
I'm Alabama bound. There'll be no heebie-jeebies hanging round. Just gave the meanest ticket man on earth all I'm worth.
This is not to say that either conforming or subverting genre norms is a good or bad thing. If your movie promises to conform to genre norms, then it does. Great, audience happy. If you promise to subvert genre norms and then you subvert them, great, audience happy. You can even promise to stick to genre norms and then subvert them, and the audience will be surprised, and if you do it well, they'll be happy.
Okay, you cunts. Let's see what you can do now.
This is Kick-Ass, which some people really like, but gets no love from me. The story is set up to be the real-world superhero, but in the end, it's just any other superhero movie, with the slick choreographed action that comes with the genre. That's not real world, is it? That little switcheroo was welcomed by a lot of superhero fans, but I, never being into superheroes, found it nothing but disappointing, as it had promised to subvert and then conformed.
You know what this is like? It's like those old movies we both love. Now I'm gonna tell you my whole plan, and then I'm gonna come up with some absurd and convoluted way to kill you, and you'll find an equally convoluted way to escape.
Sounds good to me.
Well, this ain't that kind of movie.
I don't mean to pick on Matthew Vaughn, as I think it's the source material's fault, but this is the director's follow-up movie, Kingsman, the setup of which promises to do for the gentleman spy movie what Kick-Ass did for superheroes. They even put it into dialogue. This ain't that kind of movie. Only it is that kind of movie. It's exactly that sort of movie.
It's the part where you say some really bad pun.
It's like you said to Harry. This ain't that kind of movie, bruv.
It would be remiss of me not to mention that Kingsman, like Kick-Ass before it, was a big hit. But the James Bond-style spy films it promises to subvert and then conforms to were big hits too. This is no different from Last Jedi, which spends the first half subverting everything that came before it, and then abandons it, literally in the case of one story thread, and ends up being everything it strived not to be.
Star Wars The Last Jedi is dividing fans with all its plot twists, so as a major fan, it's time we talk about everything that happens in this movie. This will be filled with spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, please stop watching now, although I feel less guilty about spoiling bad movies.
Wow!
This might be the most controversial thing I've said, but The Last Jedi doesn't bother me. I thought it was way better than Rise of Skywalker, which seemed to be the embodiment of subvert and then conform. It can't even commit to killing off characters. This is normally where I'd wrap together everything I've spoken about in this video to make some sort of conclusion, but in a subversion of expectations I'm not going to do that, and I'll let you decide if that's either a frustrating or clever way to end a video. This is a small channel and isn't monetized, so if you want to support me making more stuff, you can buy me a coffee at Ko-Fi. If you can't afford that, why not check out my other videos? Here's one I think you might like. I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.